This happened over 8 months, but the payoff was so sweet I'm still grinning whenever I see a lifted truck. I'm a 32-year-old woman living in an apartment complex where parking is assigned, and you pay an extra $75 per month for it. I've had the same spot, B7, for 3 years. It's the closest one to the elevator, and I specifically requested it when I moved in because I have a herniated disc in my lower back from a car accident. I can't walk far carrying groceries or heavy bags without being in serious pain for days. Enter Brad. This guy moves into the building in March with his obnoxiously lifted Ford F-250 that he treats like it's his firstborn child. We're talking about a $45,000 truck with custom chrome everything, LED light bars, truck nuts hanging from the hitch, and a sound system you can hear 3 blocks away. He spends every weekend washing it, waxing it, installing new chrome parts, and revving the engine to show off to anyone within earshot. The first week, everything was fine. Brad parked in his assigned spot, B12, literally just 5 spots away from mine, and minded his own business. But then he started noticing that my spot was slightly closer to the elevator, maybe 20 feet closer, and apparently that was unacceptable to His Royal Highness. It started on a Tuesday morning. I came down to leave for work and found Brad's massive truck in my spot. At first, I genuinely thought it was a mistake. New resident, maybe he miscounted the spots. So I left a polite note under his windshield saying, "Hi, I think you accidentally parked in my spot, B7. Mine is the gray Honda Civic. Your spot is B12. Thanks." When I got home from work, his truck was gone and mine was back in B7. Problem solved, right? Wrong. So very wrong. The next morning, he's in my spot again. This time I'm running late for an important meeting, so I have to park in visitor parking at the far end of the complex. By the time I walk all the way to the elevator with my laptop bag and purse, my back is screaming and I'm barely holding back tears. That evening, I decide to handle this like an adult. I look up his apartment number in the directory and knock on his door. Brad opens it. He's about 6'2", built like he still thinks he's the high school quarterback, wearing a tank top that shows off his tribal tattoos and beer gut. "Oh, you're the girl from B7, he says, looking me up and down like I'm something he scraped off his boot. "Yeah, I'm using that spot now. It's better for my truck." I take a deep breath and explain calmly that I pay for that specific spot. I've had it for 3 years and I need it because of my back injury. I even show him the parking pass with B7 clearly marked. This absolute walrus of a human being actually laughs, not chuckles, but full-on belly laughs, and says, "What are you going to do about it? Call the cops?" "It's just a parking spot, sweetheart. Maybe if you got here earlier, you wouldn't have this problem." Then he closes the door in my face. The next day, I march straight to the property management office. I explain the situation to Karen. Yes, really her name. And yes, she lived up to it. She listens with the enthusiasm of someone watching paint dry and says she'll talk to him about it. A week goes by. Brad continues parking in my spot every single day. I continue having to park in visitor parking and walk twice as far, leaving me in pain every evening. My physical therapist even asks why I'm regressing. I go back to Karen. This time, she seems annoyed that I'm bothering her again. "Look, I talked to him. He says you never park there anyway. So what's the big deal? Can't you just use visitor parking?" I explained again about my back injury and showed her my disabled parking placard. She sighs heavily and says, "Well, I can't force him to move. It's not like he's breaking any laws. Maybe you two can work something out between yourselves." I realize I'm on my own here. For the next 2 weeks, I document everything. Photos of his truck in my spot with timestamps. Videos of me having to park far away and struggling to walk. I even get a statement from my physical therapist about how the extra walking is affecting my recovery. But more importantly, I start studying Brad's routine like I'm planning a military operation. He leaves for his construction job every day at exactly 6 a.m., returns between 5 and 5:30 p.m., spends 2 to 3 hours every Saturday morning washing and detailing his truck. Sunday afternoons are for truck modifications in the parking lot. Goes to the same sports bar every Friday night and doesn't get home until after midnight. Never, ever locks his truck because real men don't worry about theft. Always leaves his windows cracked about an inch because the leather seats need to breathe and he doesn't want them to crack. I also learned some interesting things about Brad himself. He's constantly bragging to neighbors about how much his truck cost. He's applied for 3 different truck shows this summer. He's been taking pictures of his truck for some kind of custom truck magazine feature. And here's the golden nugget. He has severe allergies to pet dander. I learned this when Mrs. Chen's cat brushed against him, and he had a sneezing fit for 20 minutes. This last piece of information gives me a very interesting idea. I have a friend, Jessica, who works at a high-end pet grooming business called Pampered Paws. The kind of place where rich people spend $200 to get their poodles shampooed and their Persian cats detangled. I explained my situation to Jess without going into too much detail about my plans and asked if she could save me some of the fur they sweep up each day. She thinks it's for some kind of craft project and happily agrees. Within a week, I have gallon-sized bags of long-haired dog fur from golden retrievers, Afghans, and collies. Short-haired cat fur, the really fine stuff that gets everywhere. Rabbit fur. Apparently Angora rabbits shed like they're trying to go bald. And the holy grail. Skunk fur from a rescue animal they groomed. I also make some purchases. Liquid fish fertilizer, the most pungent kind I can find. A set of small syringes from the pharmacy. Vanilla air fresheners. This becomes crucial later. Several cans of tuna and salmon. A small funnel. Rubber gloves. A black hoodie and cap for discretion. Every weekday morning at 6:15 a.m., 15 minutes after Brad leaves for work, I begin my campaign. During weeks 1 and 2, I start small. Using the syringe, I inject tiny amounts of fish fertilizer mixed with vanilla air freshener into his air vents. Just a few drops each day. The vanilla masks the smell initially, but as it breaks down, it creates this sickly sweet fish stench that's somehow worse than just straight fish smell. I also begin the pet fur campaign. Every day, I sprinkle small amounts of the finest cat fur into his truck through those cracked windows. I focus on the air vents, under the seats, and in the crevices where the fur will get caught and circulate through his air system. During weeks 3 and 4, Brad starts to notice a weird smell but can't pinpoint it. I hear him on the phone with his buddy saying, "Dude, my truck smells funky. Like maybe something died under the hood or something." This is when I introduce the tuna juice. Every few days, I pour small amounts into his air intake system, the external vents near his windshield that feed into his cabin air system. I also start mixing rabbit fur with the cat fur. Rabbit fur is insidious. It's so fine it becomes airborne and gets into everything. During weeks 5 and 6, Brad takes his truck to a regular car wash. They do their best, but of course, they can't reach the places where I've been injecting the fish fertilizer, and the pet fur is now deeply embedded in his air filtration system. The smell is getting noticeably worse. I overhear him telling another neighbor, "I don't know what's wrong with my truck, man. I just had it detailed, and it still smells like I don't even know what." This is when I break out the big guns. I take some of the most concentrated fish fertilizer and inject it directly into his seat cushions through the back where the injection points won't be visible. I also start adding dog fur to the mix, the long, coarse kind that really holds odors. During weeks 7 and 8, by now, Brad is getting genuinely concerned. The smell has progressed from weird to actively unpleasant. His Friday night bar buddies have started making jokes about his fish truck. I see him spending extra time on Saturday mornings trying to clean the interior, but he's fighting a losing battle. For the grand finale, I deploy the skunk fur. Just tiny amounts, mixed with expired tuna juice, and the most potent fish fertilizer I can find, injected deep into his upholstery and carpet padding. By month 3, Brad is now spending every Saturday morning trying to clean his truck. He's bought ozone machines, industrial air fresheners, steam cleaners. Nothing works because he doesn't know where the smell is coming from, and every day I'm refreshing it just a little bit. He posts on his social media, "Anyone know how to get weird smells out of a truck interior? Asking for a friend." The comments are not encouraging. During month 4, Brad takes his truck to 3 different professional detailing services. The first one charges him $300 and tells him they did their best. The second one refuses to work on it after the initial inspection. The third one charges him $500 and manages to improve the smell for exactly 4 days before it comes back worse than ever. His coworkers have now banned him from giving anyone rides. I overhear him on the phone saying, "Come on, man, it's not that bad. Just roll the windows down." His Friday night bar friends have started taking separate cars. During month 5, Brad is getting desperate and angry. He's convinced someone is sabotaging his truck, but he has no idea who or how. He starts parking in different spots around the complex, but the smell follows him because it's now permanently embedded in his truck. He posts increasingly unhinged Facebook rants about jealous people and haters gonna hate. The comments section becomes a roasting session. His truck modifications have stopped completely. He can't bear to spend time in or around his truck anymore. During month 6, this is when Brad takes his truck to the dealership, convinced something has died in the engine, or there's a mechanical issue causing the smell. They charge him $400 to completely disassemble his dashboard and inspect his engine. Their diagnosis: we found an unusual amount of animal hair throughout your air system, and some kind of organic matter that appears to be fish-based, but nothing mechanically wrong. That'll be $400. Brad's response, according to the service manager I chatted up: "Fish? How the F asterisk 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 did fish get in my truck?" During month 7, Brad has now spent over $2,000 on cleaning, repairs, and diagnostics. His beloved truck sits in the parking lot like a $45,000 air freshener that's actively making the air worse. He's developed a persistent cough and watery eyes from his pet dander allergies, which have been triggered by months of breathing recirculated fur particles. His doctor thinks he's developed asthma. But the absolute best part happens when Brad posts this on his Facebook. "Okay guys, I'm being serious now. I think someone put a curse on my truck or something. It smells like dead fish mixed with wet dog and sadness. I've tried everything. Everything. If anyone knows a car exorcist or like a spiritual cleaner or something, please message me. I'm desperate." The post gets 847 comments. Someone makes a TikTok video reading it aloud with ominous music. It goes viral in the local community Facebook groups. Brad becomes known as Fish Truck Brad. During month 8, finally, Brad admits defeat. He lists his truck for sale, but every potential buyer is turned off by the smell. He has to keep lowering the price until finally, a used car dealer who specializes in problem vehicles offers him $22,000 for his $45,000 truck. Brad takes the deal. 2 days after Brad sells his truck, I'm getting my mail when he approaches me in the parking lot. He looks defeated, tired, and he's driving a beat-up Honda Accord that's probably older than me. "Hey," he says, and his voice is different now. "Humbler, I don't know if you're into weird spiritual stuff or whatever, but do you think someone could have cursed my truck? Like, maybe I pissed off the wrong person or did something to deserve that?" I look him dead in the eye and say, "Well, Brad, I do believe in karma. Sometimes when you take something that doesn't belong to you, especially when it hurts someone who's already struggling, the universe has a way of making things stink." I watch as the realization slowly dawns on his face. His eyes widen, his mouth opens slightly, and for a moment I think he might actually apologize or admit what he did was wrong. Instead, he just stares at me for a long moment, then gets in his sad little Honda and drives away. He moved out 3 weeks later. The new tenant in his old apartment is a sweet elderly lady named Mrs. Rodriguez, who bakes amazing cookies and always parks in her own damn spot. I win. I've had my parking spot back for 2 months now. My back pain has decreased significantly, and my physical therapist says I'm making excellent progress again. Brad's viral Facebook post is still making rounds on social media. Someone turned it into a meme. There's a local band that wrote a song called Fish Truck Blues, inspired by his post. And every time I park in spot B7, I smile and think about how the universe really does have a sense of humor. Some might call it extreme, others vindictive. But after months of pain, disrespect, and being told my legitimate needs didn't matter, I call it balance. It's a stark reminder that even the smallest acts of cruelty can carry the heaviest, and sometimes the smelliest, consequences. What Brad failed to understand is that when you push someone to their breaking point, when you steal their peace and laugh at their suffering, The universe often has a way of settling this score. And sometimes it's not a grand, dramatic confrontation, but a slow, methodical decay. A cold, persistent stink that simply won't go away until the lesson is learned and justice, however unconventional, is finally served. Now, this story really blew up online. Thanks for all the support. To answer some common questions people had. First, wasn't this illegal? I never damaged his truck or broke any laws. Fish fertilizer is legal to buy and use. If some happened to get into his truck through his open windows while I was fertilizing the nearby plants in the complex, well, accidents happen. Second, was this too extreme? Brad cost me months of physical pain and set back my recovery because he decided his minor convenience was more important than my medical needs. He had multiple opportunities to do the right thing and chose to be cruel instead. He could have avoided all of this by simply parking in his own assigned spot. Third, how did I not get caught? I was very careful about timing and never did anything while anyone else was around. Also, Brad was so focused on trying to fix his truck that he never considered that someone might be actively sabotaging it. Fourth, what happened to all the evidence? What evidence? I was just a concerned neighbor who happened to enjoy gardening and used a lot of fish fertilizer. Someone found Brad's Facebook post and it's now a meme template. I can't stop laughing. The internet is forever, Brad. And holy crap, someone made a TikTok series about this story and it has 2.3 million views. Brad, if you're reading this, you're famous. And that's all for this chapter of Story Served Cold. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next dish of karmic retribution. See you soon.